Hello, everyone. Welcome to the EY Finance Transformation Podcast, where today we are going to focus on artificial intelligence as a subject. I was reading through some literature and found that 73% of the CFOs in retail space are intending to embark on artificial intelligence journey, but only 18% have actually acted on it. So there is a stark difference between reality and execution. While we were thinking on what to talk to you about today, we thought, why don't we talk to some industry stalwarts and have a conversation on what they are doing in their own organization around this subject? With that context, I'm joined today by Amit Aggarwal, who is CFO and whole-time director of Bata India, a company known to all of us, sells almost 50 million pairs annually in India and has presence in 1200 plus cities. I'm also joined by my partner colleague Abhinav Johri, who leads our digital strategy and artificial intelligence practice for consumer health services market segment in India. Welcome, Amit. Welcome, Abhinav.
Thanks, Sardul, for hosting us.
Thanks, Sardul.
Amit, let's start with the big picture. Retail is changing. There is a lot of things which are happening, omni-channel. It's pretty complex now. With that context, how do you think the role of CFO is evolving?
You are absolutely right, Sardul. The way the dynamics is changing from a consumer preference, as you rightly mentioned, Bata serves through more than 1200 towns in India. We are a multi-format organization starting from our own stores, which is endless aisles. Then we have a large presence through franchise stores, specifically focusing on tier 3, tier 4 distribution. We have a large distribution and institutional business, plus the e-com presence, again through partner platforms as well as through our own website. It has become very, very complex from a CFO perspective or from a finance function perspective. So today, when you look at purely from a strategic value creation perspective, there are three key pivots what the finance function does. One, from a traditional P&L perspective, which is a overall consolidated level P&L, I think it has moved to a store level, channel level, product level. Those kinds of slices and dices are needed from a business perspective. Secondly, finance drives the entire resource allocation within the organization. Given that now finance is expected to partner in all the decision, whether in terms of what to buy, when to buy, how much to buy, which is a core merchandising job, to the supply chain strategy, and eventually translating into consumer sales.
That's actually very interesting. I think you embarked on value as a lever and theme. Abhinav, we have been advising a lot of organizations
Yeah.
around this area, and I think you have been supporting them around uh, not only transformation per se, but also leveraging data, analytics, artificial intelligence to extract value. What are you seeing in the market? Is it something very similar to what Amit is saying, or you have a different view?
It's actually quite what encouraging what Amit just explained and how it is being done at Bata. And first of all, kudos to Bata the way they have thought through about how they run the finance. From a CFO lens, we're seeing that more and more of our clients are asking that. In addition to that, I also believe that we are seeing an uptick about the way data is being dealt in every organization. I believe that many clients and many big organizations, mature organizations, now treat data very valuably. They see it as a strategic asset. And secondly, while they continue to still deal with um, their ability to bring data together, which is often the problem of the integration of variety of systems which retailers run. But with the progressive technologies now being made available, this seems to be a problem which can be now furthermore solved. So that will continue to be a challenge which I think CFOs such as Amit can majorly influence because they are the consumers of eventual outcome of the data.
How are you keeping customer as the focus, and what are you doing to kind of engage with your customer better? And is there a role that CFO or finance organization has in that dimension, or is it left to just business and marketing and sales to run that show?
A very pertinent question, Shardul. Now, what role does finance play in terms of enhancing the consumer experience? Honestly, direct influence, answer is no, because that's a core job of sales, marketing, and the CRM functions. However, where finance can play a pivotal role is in terms of looking at the business KPIs which are being monitored, how those business KPIs can always be converted into eventually the financial ROI matrices.
I think as we go forward in this conversation, I want to shift the anchor a bit towards generative AI, which
Yeah.
is what I said in the beginning of the podcast that we want to focus on today. The other way
Yeah.
around, Abhinav, with you.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in the area of generative AI?
Yeah.
What is happening? And we can probably broad base this a bit, not only talk about finance, but
Yeah.
general in business
Yeah.
as a strategy, as what are you seeing in the market, what people are trying to do?
Gen AI is now close to reality, and at least we tell our clients that sooner the better. If it is realized, if it is adopted, there are few critical areas where we see Gen AI has started contributing and making the results really real. And these are the areas which have been attempted in our earlier conversations around data analytics. It has taken them a step ahead. I just covered a minute ago that if I were to think about the way I do scenario analysis or simulation scenarios and the analytics of the risks associated with it. Earlier, the times were wherein perhaps I had to wait to run a what if scenario and perhaps I need to see what comes out of it and then strategize how I'm going to do the mitigation. Today, I'm able to generate scenarios on the run with if provided the modelings have been done right. That empowers me to make my decisions in real time, if not real time, at least near real time. And that's a great strength to any CFO who would want to strategize about that. What happens if something goes wrong in the financial plan? And the other area is the supplier and market intelligence. For instance, we often see that one of the areas where finance is often keen and curious is how am I managing my credit and the risks around with the credit. And we seeing POCs being done through Gen AI, where the ability to know the credit risk right in real time is it has been strengthened, and we see that most of the financial systems, which enables forecasting and therefore the credit allocation as well, they now are coming up with the Gen AI features, which is bringing the capability natively to the users without giving data to somebody in the tech department and waiting them to wait to give them a dashboard back.
To be honest, for listeners, they would want to know what is actually happening in the industry. Is business doing something about this concept? Are there time tested models now? Because this concept has been around for a while. Have you embarked on some of these areas and gained any significant value out of it? What are your views?
Specific nuances to Bata in terms of adoption. Again, some of the examples which you talked about in terms of, let's say, demand forecast.
Yeah.
Again, there have been historical models which were always based on regression. Problem with those models, those were always static. With the adoption of, let's say, AI and ML engines running behind it, the accuracy level, given that they factor into latest trends, what is happening on a day-to-day basis, and there is a learning curve which continuously is running behind those models, helps you significantly improve your forecast accuracies.
I think I heard you both talk a lot about what AI can do and maybe uh, what is the art of possible. And I think in your case, Amit, you also shared a few examples on what's happening. I think one thing which is apparent that as you move into these models, as you try out the new tech, there is a new age, let's say, list of risk that will unfold, right? In the models, the way the data is being managed, the way the organization is thinking about kind of a future state. So how are you kind of identifying those in the context of your business model, and how are you taking actions or steps to address those risks?
No, you're right, Sardul. The technology also bring the associated risk with it. So starting with from a model perspective, what you need to constantly look at is whether there is a bias which is getting created in the model or not. So what you do is continuously you need to look at the result on both sides, either on positive or on a flip side, whether the model is giving you a consistent bias or not. Therefore, if the bias is there, then how do you remove that bias so that your outcomes becomes much sharper and much better. That's one. The second large risk which I see is on the entire data security, data privacy, because given the stringent laws, etc., which are getting, some of them are implemented and some of those are in the process of implementation, it will become a huge risk from an organization perspective. How do you preserve the data and ensure privacy of such data while reaping benefits out of the data?
Abhinav, you want to add something on this area around risk identification and management?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. In fact, Amit pointed out to some of the most pertinent areas, especially the bias in the data, and I think we have been seeing it. So, so there are multiple problems here. You train the model on disparate data sources. Most likely, they may not necessarily have a relationship, and maybe in a state which has established a coherence. So therefore, you end up with a bad model and a bad outcome. So this remains one big risk. And therefore, many thoughtful leaders they often propagate to bring it all together by means of a data strategy or putting up at a more technical level a data architecture, which is forward looking, and concepts such as data lakes and delta lakes. We have heard about them a lot. Second is the third party AI risk. Amit, you spoke about for a while. Not all the time buying is good. And we all know that we buy for speed and we build for differentiation. And how much you build for differentiation is also a part of the strategy as well. But imagine if you end up buying a lot of AI tools from multiple vendors. We will end up into the very similar problem we often see or we have seen in the legacy system where we do not know who owns the data again. Is it yourself or is it vendor? Who owns the SLAs? Is it yourself or the vendor again? And most importantly, where does the proprietariness of the data lies, of the model lies? Is it with you? Is it with them? In some cases, it's clear. In some cases, it remains ambiguous. But that introduces the risk along with the most of the AI-ready system we have in the market today.
There is a requirement for this workforce to undergo certain degree of training around these new age topics. What is your organization thinking about that, and what are you doing with respect to that in your own department?
Adoption, what we do is extensive training of the users in terms of understanding how the new ways of working will look like and how it's going to benefit them in terms of upscaling from a traditional way of simple invoice processing to a modern way of invoice processing, which is largely driven by system with a very, very minimal or no touch from a human perspective. People need to be more trained on analytical capabilities, much more digital savviness, right? So when we are now hiring at least the new one, that is what we are focusing on. People who are good from an analytical capability, digital savviness, because their adoption and ability to add value and adopt technology will always be much higher. For the existing workforce, through whatever projects which we do for, let's say, small proof of concept if we are doing, right? So we actively engage those person responsible for those domain to actively participate in the project so that they also understand the art of possibilities.
So I'll bring you to a very recent conversation actually to both of you. Yesterday I was talking to somebody. They said they are running maybe give or take 10 initiatives around multiple problem statements as you articulated. But they have a backlog of 150 to 200 problem statements that they want to address. And these are as of yesterday that those problem statements should be addressed. How do you scale? I agree. From a starting standpoint, all the points you mentioned, both of you, are relevant. But if I'm there, if I've started, but I'm sitting with, let's call it lack of bandwidth or availability of talent, whatever you may want to call it, or maybe a mind space or an understanding of ROI. around these areas. How do I scale? How do I create that culture? How do I create that ecosystem so that most of my organization is probably thinking or doing something about it on their own? How do you self start this whole philosophy?
So typically, Shardul, progressive organizations, the way they will look at this concern, if I have, let's say, 100 business problem to solve and I have already started on the journey, right? Again, what is recommended is for each business function, you create a specialist within that sub function. What as an organization you need to do is you need to coach them, you need to train them, facilitate through building their expertise, and then help them with the ecosystem of those vendors who are capable in those specific domains.
Abhinav, AI Academy, does that resonate?
Yeah.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. In fact, few things if I can add Amit to it is that, um, in my view, it all starts from how it was initially thought through.
Many years ago, when data became mainstream thinking for many leaders, a chief data officer or chief analytics officer became such a role to own this responsibility. And we continue to see that very similar thinking has now been adopted, wherein a chief AI officer perhaps is the new persona whom we will meet more and more in our day-to-day lives in organizations who will assume this title. But the expectation remains same, that he or she lays down the vision through which either a POC or a POC at scale or maybe an enterprise-wide AI initiative shares the common set of design principles, common set of architectural principles, and also ensures that the foundational capabilities are not built just for a POC but for everything in the future what is needed.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Amit. Thank you, Abhinav, for great insights. I think it was very knowledgeable for me personally. I'm sure you will also enjoy it as you hear this podcast. While we heard Amit talk about retail specifics around Bata and so on and so forth, but I think this subject is very relevant for all industries. As Amit said, you need to start somewhere, and as Abhinav talked about, there is a process to scale. There are different strategies that people and organizations are taking as they embark on this journey and they continue to evolve on this area. Thank you for listening in. Great to have you here. Keep listening, keep looking out for new episodes and new areas. Give your suggestions if you need us to cover particular industry area or otherwise. Thank you.